Hi everyone, Chloe Arden here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. The courtroom was silent, but tension hung in the air like a storm about to break. For months, whispers of betrayal had circled like vultures, each rumor sharper than the last. Edward Osefo, once calm and composed, now sat forward, his hands trembling slightly, eyes fixed on Wendy. Nobody knew what he was about to say or show, and yet everyone in that room felt it. Something monumental was about to unfold. He cleared his throat, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. "You think you know the truth," he began, his voice low, almost a whisper. "But the real story, the one that's been hidden, it changes everything." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Phones were discreetly raised, some trying to catch a glimpse, others frozen in disbelief. Fans and media alike had speculated about Wendy's supposed dealings, but now the storm wasn't outside, it was inside these walls. And then he paused, a cold, steady look at the audience. "When I show you the proof, you won't recognize anything anymore." The room held its breath. What would Edward reveal? And could anyone survive the fallout? Edward Osefo's life had been a study in contradictions. Once celebrated for his public poise, he now stood at the center of a narrative that blurred the line between admiration and scandal. According to sources close to the family, the tensions between Edward and Wendy had been building for years, subtle, almost imperceptible to the casual observer. Friends claimed they noticed cold glances at charity events, hushed conversations cut short when Edward entered the room, and sudden, unexplained absences from social media. Reports claim that Wendy's interactions with Chris Bassett had been more than mere professional collaboration. Some believe these interactions intensified after Edward's focus shifted entirely to rebuilding his career post-scandal. Allegedly, Wendy would meet Chris privately under the guise of planning philanthropic ventures. Insiders describe texts and cryptic calls, messages like shadows, disappearing as quickly as they appeared. "I didn't see it coming," a former staffer said. They were careful, meticulous. No one suspected. Publicly, both Edward and Wendy maintained appearances of composure. Videos circulated showing them smiling at premieres, applauding one another at award ceremonies, and issuing statements of unity. Fans were divided, some loyal to Edward, championing his resilience, others drawn to Wendy's charm and apparent charisma. Social media debates erupted, hashtags trending and then vanishing like sparks in the night. But behind the smiles, the tension was palpable. According to some sources, Edward began quietly documenting interactions, keeping files, recording meetings, and collecting messages that hinted at deceit. Conversations leaked in whispers, lines like, "Make sure he never sees this," or "Everything is in place," were casually overheard at parties, though context was always unclear. The cumulative weight of these details went unnoticed, dismissed as rumor or paranoia. The turning point came during a small fundraising event. Witnesses recall Edward noticing subtle signs, Wendy laughing a little too freely at Chris's jokes, a glance exchanged that lingered longer than necessary, hands brushing in moments that should have been casual. Some describe a silent shift. The air itself seemed to tighten. According to reports, Edward's composure fractured in private immediately afterward, but publicly he remained stoic, a mask honed over years of navigating high-profile scrutiny. Fans speculated endlessly. Online forums dissected every interaction, every post, every glance. Was this just typical relationship tension magnified by fame? Or was there something darker lurking behind the carefully curated social media images? Edward's loyalists believed the latter, citing past controversies where hidden information eventually came to light. "He sees things others can't," a fan wrote, "and I think he's been waiting for the right moment." Amidst all this, Wendy's public image seemed untouchable. Headlines praised her charity work, interviews highlighted her poise, and influencers shared anecdotes of her kindness. Yet behind the polished veneer, according to insider whispers, cracks were forming. Documents that suggested fraudulent financial decisions, subtle misrepresentation of Edward's investments, and encrypted messages hinting at affairs all lingered in the shadows, never fully revealed until now. Then came the night that changed everything. Edward, who had remained silent through countless rumors, finally began hinting at a revelation. Friends close to him report that he spent nights combing through evidence, comparing timestamps, verifying messages. His goal was not revenge, at least not in the public eye. It was exposure of a truth long buried. The hints he dropped on social media were subtle, but unmistakable. Cryptic posts, fleeting comments, small gestures. Each one sparked speculation, fear, and anticipation. But then, something changed that no one saw coming. A single leaked message from an anonymous source suggested a connection between Wendy and Chris that was far more intimate than anyone had imagined. The stage was set. Rumors were no longer whispers. They were a storm waiting to strike. The world was about to witness the unmasking of secrets, meticulously kept behind closed doors. The morning of the court revelation, the atmosphere was electric. Cameras, journalists, fans, and legal observers filled every corner of the room. Edward arrived composed, yet his eyes betrayed a storm within. According to court reports, whispers spread about the documents he carried, files, images, and messages that could alter public perception irreversibly. Leaked DMs, as insiders claimed, revealed chilling conversations. Wendy instructing Chris on how to manipulate Edward, messages like, "He trusts too easily. We must be careful and ensure that none of his associates find out." The tension online was palpable. Social media erupted into a frenzy. Fans shared screenshots of supposed messages, experts speculated on legality, and theorists created timelines connecting alleged actions to Edward's dwindling public influence. Then, Edward began presenting his evidence. First, financial discrepancies surfaced. Accounts redirected, signatures forged, and misrepresented assets. He narrated the process calmly, almost methodically, allowing each revelation to settle like stones dropped into still water. "This was not an oversight," he said, voice steady but cold. "This was deliberate." The room's atmosphere thickened. Wendy's expressions shifted. The public watching through live streams noted the tension, the micro-expressions, a twitch of a lip, a falter in eye contact. According to some onlookers, Chris Bassett shifted uncomfortably, aware that the net of scrutiny was closing. Fans commented online, "Did he just admit to what we all feared? Is this the final piece of the puzzle?" Edward continued, revealing evidence of private meetings at hotels, late-night communications, and subtle attempts to hide traces from public view. The messages themselves were unassuming at first glance, mundane discussions about events, tasks, or appointments. But contextual analysis, as Edward explained, exposed intent and deception. "What seems trivial," he said, "becomes damning when seen in its entirety." The courtroom reactions were intense. Lawyers whispered to each other, reporters leaned forward, and Edward's supporters cheered silently in shock. The cascading revelations left little room for doubt. Allegedly, according to insiders, some witnesses had known pieces of the story, but feared exposure. Others claimed they suspected wrongdoing, but lacked proof until now. And then came the viral moment, a short clip released under Edward's guidance, showing Chris and Wendy in a private encounter that contradicted every public narrative they had maintained. Social media exploded. The clip, though blurred and ambiguous, created an undeniable impression. Memes, speculation, commentary. The digital world had consumed the story within minutes. At this point, Edward paused. His gaze swept the room. And yet, he whispered, voice cutting through murmurs, "This is only part of what you don't know." The hint of further revelations sent a chill through the audience. Even Wendy, reportedly, seemed taken aback, covering her mouth and looking to Chris for reassurance that wasn't there. The conflict had escalated beyond personal betrayal. Now it was public, viral, and legally complex. Observers noted that Edward's methodical presentation left little room for misinterpretation. Every piece of evidence, every quote, every timeline was carefully laid out. Fans debated online, who was telling the truth? Was Edward justified, or was this an orchestrated spectacle? Then came the twist. An anonymous insider, reportedly a longtime associate, leaked additional context. Messages from Wendy to other parties suggested she had anticipated exposure and attempted to mitigate damage preemptively. Yet her efforts, no matter how meticulous, could not withstand Edward's organized revelation. She thought she could control the narrative, Edward said, but truth has a way of escaping even the most carefully constructed illusions. As the day ended, the story remained unfinished. Social media buzzed. Speculation reached a fever pitch, and and the public could not stop watching. The stage was set for the final act, where private betrayals would meet public reckoning. The cliffhanger was clear. Would the full truth finally surface, or would secrets continue to linger, just out of reach? The final act unfolded under the harsh glare of courtroom lights. Edward stood firm, now delivering what insiders described as the complete dossier: videos, messages, and documents meticulously compiled over months. The tension was suffocating. Every eye was on him, every breath measured. The first revelation: Wendy had allegedly orchestrated financial misrepresentations, diverting funds under Edward's name to accounts controlled by third parties. According to sources, these actions were subtle, intended to evade public detection. The emotional weight of these discoveries struck everyone present. Lawyers whispered, court staff gasped, and even casual observers felt a mix of disbelief and awe. Then came the confession, one that shocked more than the financial documents. Chris Bassett, called to the stand, reportedly admitted to a personal relationship with Wendy, contradicting every public statement they had made. "It's true," Chris allegedly said, voice trembling. "I should have come forward sooner, but I was afraid of the consequences." Wendy's reaction was immediate and raw. She reportedly burst into tears, pleading for understanding, explaining intentions, and denying malicious motives. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," she said, voice cracking. "I thought I was protecting us both," but the evidence presented left little room for doubt. Public fallout was instantaneous. Clips of courtroom reactions, excerpts from the leaked dossier, and fan commentary dominated news cycles. Social media exploded with hashtags debating loyalty, betrayal, and the ethical consequences of exposing private actions. Memes circulated. Experts dissected timelines. Fan theories multiplied. The drama extended beyond the courtroom, consuming digital platforms and forums. Edward's final statement reportedly captured the emotional and moral core of the saga. This isn't just about revenge. This is about truth, and the truth will always find a way. His calm, measured delivery contrasted with the storm of revelations, leaving the room both silent and reeling. Yet, even in this climax, one thread remained unresolved. Sources hinted at additional communications, meetings, and decisions that were never fully disclosed. Speculation arose. What else might surface? What unseen consequences awaited? The story, while climactic, remained open-ended, leaving the audience suspended in tension and curiosity. Observers commented on Edward's resilience and methodical approach. His meticulous documentation, combined with emotional composure, transformed a personal betrayal into a public lesson about vigilance, truth, and accountability. For Wendy, Chris, and the surrounding network, the courtroom drama represented both a reckoning and a warning. As the final gavel fell, Edward reportedly walked away silently, leaving behind a trail of stunned spectators and a public eager for more. The echoes of betrayal, confession, and exposure would linger, conversations continuing long after the courtroom emptied. And while many questions had been answered, the full consequences, financial, personal, and societal, were far from resolved. The courtroom drama has ended, but the story is far from over. Edward's revelations exposed hidden relationships, financial deceptions, and private betrayals that had remained obscured for years. The emotional weight of these discoveries reverberates not just through the participants' lives, but across every discussion, every social media thread, and every conversation following this dramatic disclosure. What's still unknown? Could there be other secrets, other hidden truths that Edward hasn't revealed? Is there a larger network of deceit lurking just beneath the surface? Only time, investigation, and perhaps more disclosures will tell. If you think this saga ends here, think again. Sources hint at further developments, messages yet unseen, confessions yet unspoken, and actions that could rewrite what we think we know. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if faced with truths this explosive? But what do you think? Was this truth, or something deeper hiding beneath the surface? This video is a dramatized and fictionalized commentary created for entertainment and discussion. It does not present verified facts.